Good morning. Many thanks for inviting me to your event, and apologies for not being able to be live with you in what I am sure is a very interesting conversation, particularly if I look at the topics and the questions that you've chosen for your debate. And I will take the question that you sent me, which is to say how technology can help, can contribute for the young generations finding a fulfilling life in a rural area. I will start with something that is very dear to my heart because I chair the Artificial Intelligence Special Committee in the European Parliament, and that is artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence, which is one of the driving forces behind the digital revolution that we live today, can tremendously transform agriculture, can change the way our farms are managed, and that's where the young generation, boys and girls, can actually help their parents, they can help their communities being digitally native and having by far better skills, better digital skills than their parents or their grandparents. They can actually help farms be modern. We can have algorithms that are predicting weather patterns, and that can help in the way we plan our crops. There are technologies today that can measure nutrients, they can measure the degree of moisture in the soil, and generally there is technology today that can actually change, revolutionize completely the way farming is being done. Of course, there is the issue of accessibility to these technologies and also literacy to be able to use these technologies. But I was saying earlier, as digitally native, I think this generation, the younger generation, can have a much more capable contribution to the transformation of the way agriculture is being done. And if they stay in those rural areas, if they stay in the communities where they were born or where they decide to live because they like living in a rural area, I think again they can have this tremendous contribution to farming and to agriculture. The second element is that you can actually do today with the digital tools that we have. You can do, sitting in a village, almost everything you can do if you sit in a big city. And why is that? Because particularly now after the pandemic, we see that we are living our professional lives, we are living our personal life, we can interact with our bosses, with our colleagues, we can send our homework or send our contribution to a project by sitting at home, by being remote somewhere where, and this is the important part, where we have access to digital infrastructure. And this is where the link between the life of a young boy or girl in a village becomes very important, because for them to actually be able to anchor their futures in a village, they need to have access to digital infrastructure. And this is where the role of the state comes in. It is essential that states at the European level are investing public money to ensure that there are no more white areas on the map when it comes to connectivity. This is where the new allocations under the recovery fund post-COVID comes in. You know that minimum 20% of this money has to be allocated to digital. And if I look, for example, at the choices that Romania has made in PNRR, a good part of that money will go to connectivity. And I think that's key, because again, by having access to good broadband internet, by having access to mobile networks, then you can do all of the things that I mentioned earlier. And then the third element is literacy and education. For being able to access and to be an integral part of this digital transformation, we have to have those skills, we have to have those competencies. And even though, as I was saying earlier, our young girls and boys, they are born into this technology, and therefore they're finding it much easier than it is for us to use technology, to deploy, to adapt to its transformations. Education remains key, because critical thinking, the ability to innovate, the entrepreneurial spirit that needs to be so so well cultivated, if we are to reap the benefits of digital transformation, is something that has to be learned, has to be studied, has to be part of the curricula, and that regardless of whether, again, we live in rural or in urban areas. So with all of these, with the role that technologies can play in agriculture, with how digital tools based on very solid digital infrastructure can give access, even when you are sitting in a rural area and living in a rural area, can give access to all of the benefits of today's society, going all the way to how we educate ourselves. With this environment, we can have and we can live a very good life, no matter where we chose to live it. And I think that is something that for our young generations should be an important motivator to remain also there in the villages where they might happen to be, because they can also lead a fulfilling life there. Thank you very much. I'm wishing you a very interesting debate for the rest of the event.